Hello and welcome to another Duval Schools Media podcast presented by Duval County Public Schools. My name is Matt Biegun.
And I'm Vickie Pierre.
And during today's episode, we're going to get real talk about bullying. Today's guest knows a thing or two about being a victim of bullying. He's the writer and star of the play Bully, Jacksonville's own Lee J. Kaplan. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, you guys.
First of all, Lee, tell us how your experience with bullying influenced your life, and would you do anything differently?
Well, I think that, after having discovered this journal, which I'm sitting here with, and that I kept when I was in sixth grade, it became very clear to me that I had been silent about what happened to me for a very long time. And there's a lot of shame that's associated with this stuff, and you don't want to be the one who sort of calls out and says, hey, there's shame associated with identifying yourself like that. And I think that's one of the biggest hurdles even today, and so it certainly affected my life at the time. And affects my life now because I have arrived at a place where I'm able to talk about it, in a more open way and to use theater to do so. When you say would I have done anything different, do you mean sort of at the time when I was that age? I wish that I had the confidence to speak out, to let these kids know that they can't define who I am. They can't tell me how I feel. But it was really overwhelming for me. It was obviously a sort of a super sensitive thing, and I felt powerless, and I felt ashamed, as I said at the time, and I certainly wish that those things hadn't been the case. But certainly given the fact that they were, it's enabling me now to speak to kids who feel like that today in schools, and to let them know that there is a way through this and that they are not alone.
And I do want you to clarify something for people listening. They may not understand. You made a reference to your journal, and I know that's integral to the play. Explain that. Sure.
The journal is something that was a class assignment in the sixth grade where we would regularly journal our lives. And I was fortunate enough to be home a couple years ago when my folks happened to be going through some old stuff and said, hey, here's a box of your stuff. And inside that box was this journal, in which I had, amongst other things that were sort of, more 12-year-old oriented, also detailed things that happened to me that I didn't remember particularly until I read them in this journal with the kind of specificity that you can get from that kind of day-to-day writing. So this journal has become a prop in the show. And I read directly from it during the course of the show.
So obviously you were inspired by what was going on in your life to write in the journal back when you were 12. What inspired you, or who inspired you to write this play?
Well, that's a great question. I think at that time that I found this, I had returned to acting because for quite a while, I knew that it was my love. It's my first love. The theater is, where I love to be, and didn't really allow myself, to wrap myself around it as a career, and finally had returned to it, and recognized that, hey, I have some talents that would allow me to do a multi-character solo show like this, and wouldn't it be amazing to get the message out like that? For me to pair my professional aspiration with something that I feel so passionate about that happened to me when I was in elementary and junior high school.
I think passion's a big part of it.
It is, for sure. And I think kids are often inspired by another person's passion, for sure. Mm. This is something you're going to be performing in front of teachers and in front of students, I'm sure. What lessons do you want people to walk away from this? Because you expressed some regret as far as how you responded back when you were younger, but what messages, what important lessons do you want people to grab now? Yeah,
I mean, it's the thing where I think at the time, you're in that situation, and in the moment, it's difficult sometimes to really know how to react. And so I think that there is, even sitting here right now talking with you guys, it occurs to me that there is something in preparedness for this, that kids can begin to acknowledge, okay, I may run into this, and parents too. And this may happen. Look, I hear it happening all over the place. It's universal in that way. And look, let's be honest, it doesn't just happen in schools. I mean, this happens everywhere. It can happen in school, out of school, when the teachers are there, when the teachers are not there. This is not just a school issue. It's far from it. In fact, I was at one of my talkbacks after the festival performances in New York, and one gentleman raised his voice very bravely and talked about how he was bullied in the workplace. And that it goes on, in many locations. So, I think that there is that point of the awareness, and encouraging the open communication, telling these people, no matter what their age is, that they are not alone and there is no shame in talking about it.
So would you say that bullying's kind of always been part of our lives? It's just talked about more?
Yeah, I think that, it's that kind of behavior. You get a group of people together, and sadly that kind of behavior begins to manifest itself, in some way.
With cliques and things like that.
Certainly that, you sort of watch kids behave. And, since doing this show, I've actually had people come and tell me, people with very, very young children, maybe ages 2 and 3. And even there, they begin to identify these behaviors and say, oh, wait a minute, look what that kid is doing, and it's sort of in that way, you never know sort of where it comes from, if it's learned behavior or if it's just the way that people interact with each other. And so I think that that's certainly, something that people can become aware of.
I guess out of curiosity, and I know this will probably be very well displayed in the show, but you often hear about different types of bullying, cyberbullying, physical, verbal. What was it with you? Was it a variety? Was it one person, one thing?
That's a great question. I mean, certainly the cyberbullying predates me, and for me it was, it started off as mostly verbal, even small things, looks, glances, smirks when the teacher had her back turned, to slightly physical things, trying to slam my head into the desk, putting insects on me when we were running around outside. This is material that I do include in the show, and then it graduated as we graduated to different grades, from one year to the next. It became more physical, and it also became more psychological in its nature. And it wasn't, I don't think, anything where they sort of pre-planned that, okay, now is the time when we become psychological in our attacks. I just think that it was the sort of natural progression of this, and it was a very frightening experience.
And it's one thing to be a victim of bullying, but then to stand back and watch it happening to another student, another friend, a brother, a family member. Was there anybody in your life that was there to help you along?
Absolutely. I mean, my mind immediately goes to my family because, as I talk about in the show, that was, one of very few places where I really truly felt safe. And I was very fortunate to have my brother, who was, always in my corner, younger brother, and my parents certainly did what they knew to do in terms of going to meet with the teachers and meet with the administration, have the parent-teacher conferences, do what they felt like they needed to do all that they could do, and to provide a home environment where there was safety, and that was very important, and I think that I remember, speaking of those parent-teacher conferences, I remember going into those meetings, and the child who was sort of the aggressor was there along with his parents, perhaps, and I was there along with my parents, and I remember that we would be treated equally. I remember feeling like there wasn't any sort of finger pointing saying, okay, you are good, you are bad. It was a very equal sort of politically correct treatment, and it's like, let us just resolve this situation and let's move on. And what I found afterwards was that there was no change. I didn't feel like there was a long-term impact. It was just, okay, well, we're doing our duty by addressing this, and then we can just, get on with the rest of the day. And I think that that's where the issue really lies, because there was no correction involved. And I certainly wish that had been handled differently.
It just felt like they were just checking it off the list that they provided the space and the time for the meeting. And it's awkward. I've been in those myself where you're in the same room with the person, and it's awkward. I mean, it really is an awkward feeling to be part of that. So to be a victim of the bullying to begin with, and then to be dragged back into that situation where it's almost like you're tattling, and it's not. You're trying to, it's almost like raising your hand. You need help.
That's exactly right. I mean, and that's the thing, and it's like the awkwardness you speak of is exactly right. And it's a room where I got the feeling that sort of nobody knew exactly what to do, is like, well, let's just talk this through. And it's so interesting because, there we were as, 11, 12, 13-year-olds. And I see this kind of approach, this kind of behavior mimicked clear throughout my life where, okay, well, there's an issue. Let's sit down in a room. Let's talk it through. And the approach is just a little off. And I think, that as big a problem as this still is today, I think that one of the things that I am encouraged by is that now I think that people go into those rooms with the awareness that, okay, this can actually be a bigger issue than just this isolated specific incident, and we need to address it as such. I think that's what I see shifting. Even a little bit, I think it's beginning to shift. I think that's a really cool thing.
And since we're talking about resolution and solutions, our superintendent has launched a campaign to really address safety and discipline in our schools. We were chatting about this a moment ago. We have a new hotline, an AntiBully Hotline, 390-CALL, and students can call, they can text, they can speak to a trained counselor, you can remain anonymous. What do you think about these resources, and how valuable are they?
Incredible. Oh, God. I mean, I just walked into the building. I saw that poster, and I just was elated. And to learn that this is, beginning now, it's launching now, that these, we're investing this kind of attention in these resources. I applaud the effort. Just incredible. And I think that this is where it really needs to go. And I think it's providing a wonderful blueprint for how these things can be addressed. I have to say that I've heard some wonderful stories about adults setting up resources and kids setting up resources. And I heard this beautiful thing when I was at a benefit on Sunday for a child who unfortunately committed suicide because of the attacks he suffered. And the kids in that community have set up an anonymous compliment page where you can go on the page, and I think it may be on Facebook or perhaps on their school's website, and you can go onto the page, and they have a way to have people sort of say, oh, I love, how you look today, or that was a really wise thing you said in class yesterday, and have just anonymous compliments to the person, and really shift that feeling where it's like, we can talk about good stuff too. And that sort of plays right into your question about setting up the hotline and what I'm seeing. I think the more kids see this, the more comfortable and more open they'll feel to discuss what they're talking about, and hopefully we won't have to have benefits for children who commit suicide because they feel like they've been bullied so terribly.
And 390-CALL is not just a lack of better words, a tattle hotline where you call and you're telling about a bully. There's a trained guidance counselor on the other line that's going to help you through what you're feeling. And I think that's a big thing because we see kids lash out and do things because they don't have a means of getting their feelings across to anybody. And I think it's going to be a vital resource for students that they just need somebody to talk to. They don't know how to go to mom or dad, and they can be anonymous and they can just let their feelings out. And that way it doesn't become anything violent, doesn't become anything later on that builds up. And I think this is, and it's getting the message out to the students is a big thing, is the phone number. I mean, it's a simple 390-CALL.
Absolutely.
And I mean, it can't be much more simple than just call it. I mean, it literally is. It says it in the phone number. Call.
Yeah. it's a wonderful resource, and I just think that there is room for hotlines like this. There is room for electronic, whether it's over Facebook or otherwise. There's room for resource, and room for open communication, and I think that it's a wonderful thing that's going on.
I think that's it. I think
we really appreciate having you on.
And
a lot of insight.
It's a pleasure to be here.
You got a show tonight, so looking forward to it.
Very excited. I'm looking forward to it. I'm grateful to be able to do the show for the teachers, and then of course over the rest of the weekend to perform for the community. I think it's just going to be a wonderful experience.
It's your own community, so that's even.
That's
cooler.
Right. That's right. That's right. Absolutely, it's nice.
Well, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And just remember, we are on the air here with Real Talk, and we want to hear from you. So feel free to email us at dsmedia@duvalschools.org. That is dsmedia@duvalschools.org. And signing out, this is Vickie.
And I'm Matt. Thanks for listening.